Okay, so you want to really get a handle on something, right? You want like the core insights without wading through tons of stuff,
Yeah.
right? We're here for that. Think of this as like your express rate to being well-informed, cutting through all the noise.
Yeah, absolutely.
And today we're going to dive into something, well, pretty fascinating, to be honest.
I think so.
The idea of electroculture.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and we'll be looking at it specifically from the perspective of these two students, Kesser and Steen,
Right.
and how they approached this old idea. And we're not trying to, like, say for sure whether it works or not,
Yeah.
but really get inside, like, how they thought about it, especially given this is a nearly 300-year-old concept.
Right. Yeah. Looking at it with a fresh perspective, it's always good to revisit old ideas with what we know now.
So the whole thing started actually with Steen coming across this video online. You know how it is. You're going down the rabbit hole. And this video, it was suggesting that plants could like really thrive with the help of cosmic energy.
Cosmic energy.
Yeah, and they were using this DIY setup with a copper wire antenna.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, on a broomstick. But their professor, Professor Hendricks, instead of just saying that's nonsense, saw this as a really cool opportunity.
Right.
They were in this class, Nature Innovations. It's a great name.
Yeah.
And the professor was like, okay, you guys, use this to develop a proper scientific approach.
I see. So not just dismissing it outright.
Exactly. Because you find these things all the time outside of a lab.
Totally.
So how do you investigate it? And Steen, from those initial notes, kind of sparse, but he found this name, Andrea Donnoli.
Donnoli.
Yeah, and it said he was the founder-owner Electro-Cultura in Bologna, Italy.
Interesting. So Italy.
Right, but here's the weird part. There was German text with it.
Huh. That's a curious combination.
Right, so they started thinking, how did these things connect, like even back then?
Yeah, how did information travel without the internet,
It's like a historical puzzle.
Right.
And as Kesser pointed out, you've got German, Italian-speaking areas in Switzerland and Austria.
Yeah.
So it shows how these ideas might have moved around.
It's fascinating.
It is. It really highlights the challenge of historical research.
So gooey.
Piecing together these fragments from different languages, different sources.
Yep.
And from that one lead, things really opened up.
Okay.
They found sales pages, these spiral antennas. But again, we're more interested in the ideas behind
The underlying concepts.
Right, not just the products, but more importantly, they found references to these old publications.
Like what?
One was called Practical Manual of the Original J.E. Christophlo's Patents, 1865-1938.
Oh.
Yeah, imagine that. And there was even an English version promising like a new backyard.
A new backyard. Interesting.
And that led them to another person, Justin Christophlo.
Okay.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Through Professor Hendricks' connections, they got access to, get this, a secret document.
A secret document.
Found in Australia, of all places.
What? The kid?
And Kesser, skimming through it, was like, oh man, check out these buzzwords. Geomagnetism, electricity from the clouds, weather conditions, plant diseases, pests. It's like they saw all these natural forces as totally interconnected.
Yeah, influencing plant health.
And the big thing from this document, a reference to Abbe Nollet in 1749.
1749.
Yeah, almost 300 years ago.
Wow.
He was one of the first, at least that they found, to make this connection between electricity and plants.
Interesting.
Noting its role in soil evaporation, how seeds germinate, even the movement of sap inside the plant.
So even back then, they were thinking about this.
Right. And Steen, he was just blown away by how old this was.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And Kesser pointed out, remember around that time there was that huge volcanic eruption in Iceland?
Oh, yeah.
Led to crop failures all over Europe.
Right.
So you can imagine how people were looking for answers.
Yeah, anything to improve their crops.
And Steen even made this comment about the French monarchy, how they were spending money left and right.
Oh, interesting.
Which adds this whole social and economic context to the story.
Absolutely.
Like, it wasn't just scientific curiosity. It was like, we need to grow more food.
Right, real-world problems.
And this document, it got so specific, they even had instructions on how to install a 7-meter antenna.
7 meters.
Crazy, right? And remember, this was way before the internet. Information wasn't easy to come by.
No.
And the photos, they described them as really impressive, taken without Photoshop or anything.
Wow.
And the marketing slogans were amazing. Things like, grows everything by wireless, the money maker, the money saver.
Sounds like a late-night infomercial.
Totally. And they focused a lot on electrification of seeds, saying it would make them germinate quicker and better.
So they were really selling this idea.
Yeah, and it all ties into this historical context. Kesser even brought up Rousseau.
Rousseau.
Yeah, the philosopher, and
Yeah.
how he had this revelation during the Enlightenment.
Oh, right.
And his ideas about progress and the problems that come with civilization. It's a fascinating backdrop.
Yeah, it really sets the stage.
Like, this electroculture thing wasn't just an isolated idea.
Right.
It was part of this whole intellectual movement.
People were rethinking the natural world.
Exactly. So let's talk about electroculture itself.
Okay.
What is it? Well, Kesser and Steen found that it's this idea, going back to the 1800s, 1900s mainly,
Yeah.
that you can make plants grow better using electric or magnetic fields.
Interesting.
And they do it in all sorts of ways, but a common one was sticking copper or zinc rods into the ground.
Okay.
Like antennas, they'd say they were capturing this natural electromagnetic energy.
Okay.
And the idea was this energy would then stimulate the plants.
But how?
They had a few theories. Maybe it affected the ions in the soil or the microorganisms or even the structure of water around the roots.
Okay.
Now, there isn't a lot of hard scientific proof for it, but
Yeah.
there are these anecdotal reports, small experiments that suggest there might be something there.
Right. And they often linked it to the Earth's magnetic field geomagnetism.
And that's when Kesser asked this really fundamental question
What was that?
about magnetism and electricity.
Oh, right. How are they related?
Because they are
Yeah.
deeply. You know, an electric current creates a magnetic field, and a changing magnetic field can induce an electric current.
Electromagnetism 101.
Exactly. So even these passive systems with no external power could still be affected by these natural fields, Earth magnetic fields, solar, wind, things like that.
Makes sense.
And then there's the whole thing with copper and zinc.
Okay.
When you put them in moist soil, you're basically making a really simple battery.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, zinc is more reactive than copper, so it loses electrons, becoming zinc ions.
Right.
And the copper takes those electrons.
Okay.
The moisture acts as an electrolyte, letting this tiny current flow.
So a basic chemical reaction?
Yeah, but Steen, he was thinking about this guy who used galvanized metal for his raised beds.
Galvanized metal.
Yeah, which has zinc in it, and then added a copper rod. So he wondered, is this accidentally creating that same current?
It's a good question.
But he also joked about lunar cycles.
Oh, right. Throwing in some less scientific ideas.
Yeah, showing he wasn't just accepting everything.
Healthy skepticism.
Exactly. But both Kesser and Steen had studied electricity in soil before,
Okay.
and they knew any effects from these simple setups would be super localized. Like tiny area, tiny current,
Right.
compared to, say, high voltage power lines where the impact is huge.
Yeah, they gave the example of sheep being harmed by copper dripping from those lines.
Totally different scale.
Yeah, intensity matters.
And that brings us to scientific rigor, which is so important.
Absolutely.
Kesser and Steen, they knew that just looking at two plants doesn't tell you anything.
Right. N2 is meaningless statistically.
You can't draw any conclusions about a general effect from that.
No.
And even measuring a few plants, you're not accounting for natural variation.
You need a larger data set to see any real trends.
Exactly. And doing these experiments in the real world is tough.
Oh, yeah.
You've got animals interfering, maybe pesticides nearby. So many things can mess up your results.
It's hard to isolate what you're measuring.
Yeah, which is what Professor Hendricks was trying to teach them.
Good science is tough.
And we also have to remember what we know now about soil. Like the role of ions, how they're essential for plants to take up nutrients.
Right. We have a much better understanding now.
300 years ago, they couldn't even measure that stuff.
And the whole interaction between plants and microorganisms.
Yeah, plants actually release compounds to attract beneficial microbes.
It's amazing.
It is. It's a whole communication network down there.
So where does that leave electroculture today?
Well, it's become a bit of a trend, electroculture gardening.
Interesting.
And Kesser and Steen found this quote from Linda Chalker-Scott. She's a PhD.
Yeah.
And she said, "No real proof that electricity improved yield or plant growth in any measurable way."
So scientifically, not much support.
Right. And this is a good reminder for everyone. Don't just believe everything you see.
Be critical.
There are always these quick fixes being promoted.
The DIY pharmacists, Kesser called them.
Yeah, it's good to be skeptical.
Absolutely.
So we've gone on this journey through time,
Yeah.
looking at electroculture from the 1700s to now.
And even though modern science doesn't really back it up, it's still fascinating to see how people were thinking back then.
Right, how they tried to make sense of the world.
With the tools they had?
Exactly, and it makes you wonder,
Mm-hmm.
with all the technology we have now,
Yeah.
could we find something new?
Some subtle effect we couldn't measure before?
Maybe. Who knows? It's a reminder that we're always learning.
Our understanding is constantly evolving.
That's the beauty of it.
It is.
Always more to discover.
Exactly.
So keep those questions coming, and we'll keep diving deep.
Absolutely.
See you next time.
Take care.